guys, I'm the 8th house siren, and today we're going to be talking about shadow periods and how to use them to your advantage. You may have heard people reference shadow periods when they're discussing planets in retrograde. A shadow period happens in two parts. The first part occurs before the planet in question goes into retrograde, and the second period happens after the planet in question goes direct. So first we're going to discuss how to determine when those shadow periods are, and then next we're going to talk about how you can use those periods to your advantage. And for this example, I'm going to use the upcoming Venus retrograde occurring this December. Step one is using an ephemeris to figure out when the retrograde will start and what degree and sign the planet will be in when it starts its retrograde. So again, we're using Venus. We're using this upcoming Venus retrograde occurring in December. First of all, using an ephemeris. If you don't know how to use an ephemeris, I do have a video on Instagram on how to use an ephemeris. It's kind of cringy, so you could look at that video, but you can also look at other videos. There's a lot of amazing astrologers out there, and I'm sure they have videos on how to use an ephemeris. But moving on, so using an ephemeris, you can figure out the date the retrograde starts. So it'll start December 19th. It'll be in Capricorn, and it'll be at 26 degrees. This information is important for the upcoming steps. Step two is you want to figure out when the planet in question goes direct. So in this case, Venus will go direct January 29th in Capricorn at 11 degrees. Step three is to figure out when the last time Venus was in Capricorn at 11 degrees, because remember, that's the sign and degree in which it goes direct. So when was the last time Venus was in Capricorn at 11 degrees before Venus started going in retrograde? So you would use an ephemeris to figure out that date. So by using an ephemeris, I figured out that the last time Venus was in Capricorn at 11 degrees before it went retrograde was November 18th. Using the information, we now have the first shadow period. So the shadow period that occurs before the actual retrograde. So that will be November 18th through December 19th. So as of now, we have determined that our shadow period begins November 18th. It goes all the way up until December 19th, when Venus actually goes in retrograde at 26 degrees. Then we know that Venus will go direct on January 29th. So we have to figure out the rest of this shadow period, because remember, I said the first shadow period is before Venus goes into retrograde, and then the last part of the shadow period is when, or after Venus goes direct. So the way that we're going to figure out the dates of the last part of the shadow period is to figure out when the next time Venus will be in Capricorn at 26 degrees after the retrograde is finished. And remember, Venus was in Capricorn at 26 degrees when the retrograde started, or when it starts, that's where Venus will be, in Capricorn at 26 degrees. So to figure out the last part of the shadow period, you just have to use an ephemeris again and figure out the next time Venus will be in that exact same sign and degree when the retrograde is finished, and that will be March 2nd. So that means our shadow period, we'll call it shadow period part 2, will be January 29th, the date in which the retrograde actually ends, through March 2nd, the date that Venus reaches the sign and degree that it was in when retrograde first started. Does that make sense? Okay, so we're gonna recap all of this. So the very first thing is we figured out when Venus would start going retrograde, and that is December 19th in Capricorn at 26 degrees. Then we figured out when Venus will go direct. That'll be January 29th in Capricorn at 11 degrees. So then we have to figure out the last time Venus was in Capricorn at 11 degrees before the retrograde. And we're using Capricorn at 11 degrees because that is when Venus will go direct. Does that make sense? So that date is going to be November 18th. So that means our shadow period will be November 18th through December 19th. November 18th is the date that Venus will be in the exact same sign and degree that it will be in when it goes direct. December 19th is when it actually goes in retrograde. So next we're trying to figure out the next part of our shadow period. So first we start by figuring out the next time Venus will be in Capricorn at 26 degrees. Why Capricorn at 26 degrees? Because Capricorn at 26 degrees is when the Venus retrograde will start. So we have to figure out when Venus will be in that same sign and degree when the retrograde is over with. That date is March 2nd. Then we use the date, so January 29th, the last day of the actual retrograde, through March 2nd, the day that Venus makes it to the sign and degree that it was in when it went in retrograde. So then the shadow period, the next part of our shadow period is January 29th through March 2nd. Okay, so how do we use this to our advantage? I think the best time or the best things to do during a retrograde period is to try new things, test the waters, and normally when we test the waters and things like that, we want to make sure that we're going to get a second chance or a chance to try again just in case things don't work out. Retrograde periods are about like redoing, rethinking, re. So for example, say you're given a project to work on at your job and it's your responsibility to make sure that it goes smoothly, but you want to do it a little differently than the way it's normally done. So you want to test out a new process. A good time to test out this process would be the shadow period. So in this case, between November 18th through December 19th, right? So that's when you would implement this new process. You have that whole time during the retrograde period to figure out like, okay, maybe I can change that. Like, I don't know if that's working out, blah, 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 right? So you have a second opportunity during this second shadow period, January 29th through March 2nd, to try again, tweaking certain parts of your process so that you can get the project done. This requires a lot of planning and just a lot of coordination on your part because you want to time this right. You want to make sure that whatever it is you're testing the waters on, the timeline coincides with the shadow period and the retrograde timeline. So in short, shadow period 1 is for testing the waters. The actual retrograde period is to kind of see how everything unfolds, look at your new process with a critical eye, and then, see what changes can be made. And then the second shadow period is for making revisions. On using this strategy during this upcoming Venus retrograde, definitely try it on something small, right? I wouldn't try it on something large scale the first time around because like I said, it involves a lot of planning and coordination. Once you get comfortable with it, then you can start using it for bigger projects and situations. So I hope this was helpful. Again, I'm the 8th house siren. If you like this video, go ahead and subscribe to my channel or go ahead and like it. And I'll see you next time. Bye.